Okay, our last lesson for this week is lesson 88, and we're going to learn to solve equations by factoring. So we have to first learn this theorem called the zero factor theorem, and it's in your book, and I'm asking that you read it and take notes on it. But largely what it says is that when I have factors, like in this case I have x plus 2, that's a factor, x minus 6, that's a factor, and I set it equal to 0, then it must be the case that either the x plus 2 or the x minus 6 or both of them are equal to 0. And so what we need to do is find out the two values for x's. Now we can have an x in this factor and an x solution in this factor. And so we're going to have two values for x in these equations. Okay, and so what we're going to do, I said it must be the case that either x plus 2 is equal to 0 and or x minus 6 is equal to 0. So then what we do is we go ahead and solve. In the left example, we're going to subtract a 2 from both sides. So we end up with x is equal to negative 2. And then in the right example, we add a 6 to both sides, so x is equal to 6. And so we have two solutions for this equation. X is equal to negative 2, x is equal to 6. So we've solved that equation. Okay, another example here. Okay, if I have this equation, okay, and it has three factors in it rather, x minus 1, and x plus 10, and we set it all equal to 0. It's very key to set these things equal to 0. Okay, so then I have the case that I have either x is equal to 0 and or x minus 1 is equal to 0 from that factor, and or x plus 10 is equal to 0 from that factor. So we solve. X is equal to 0, nothing to solve there. X minus 1 equals 0, we add a 1 to both sides. And x plus 10 equals to 0, we subtract a 10 from both sides. So then we solve and we end up with x is equal to 0, x is equal to 1, x is equal to 10. So that's the solution for that factored equation, okay? So then we're going to move ourselves to practice A. Sorry about that video. All right, practice A, this is in your book. All right, and this is how it's written. All right, so notice it's not equal to 0. So the first thing we must do is set it equal to 0. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to add a 5x to both sides and subtract a 24 from both sides so that we get it equal to 0. So I end up with x squared plus 5x minus 24 equals 0. Okay, now I'm allowed to factor. So I, up here in pink, went through the factors in my head. Now I recognize there's a positive here and a negative here. My negative on this third term recognizes or requires me to use, when I factor, a positive and a negative. So I look through my factors and I'm noticing that the 8 and the 3, if I use a positive and a negative, that's going to give me my 5. Okay, because 8 minus 3 is 5. So I realize there's a positive at the 5, so it must have a positive 8. Okay, the middle number is positive, so the bigger number must be positive, times x minus 3 equals 0. I set each of these factors equal to 0. So x plus 8 is equal to 0, x minus 3 is equal to 0. I solve and I get x is equal to negative 8, x is equal to positive 3. Okay, so my solutions are x is equal to negative 8, x is equal to positive 3. There's how you solve that. Okay, and I am going to go ahead and do B also because this is such a new concept. All right, in your book, it displays like this. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is we need to set it equal to 0. So I'm going to go ahead and add my 8x to both sides and rearrange the order so it's convenient. So x squared, always put the x squareds first, plus 8x minus 48 is equal to 0. I noticed that, again, my third term here is negative, so that's going to be a positive and a negative. So my 12 and my 4, when I subtract them, gives me my 8. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm going to have my x plus 12, x minus 4 equals 0. That's my factored form. So then I need to set each one of these terms equal to 0. Okay? So x plus 12 is equal to 0, and x minus 4 is equal to 0. I go ahead and solve. Subtract the 12 from both sides, add a 4 to both sides. X is equal to negative 12, x is equal to positive 4. X is equal to negative 12 and positive 4. And that's the whole problem. I'll see you next week. Call, text, email, whatever, to let me know your problems. I am praying for you, and I know you're going to do great. See you next week. Bye.